Hello everyone, my name is Shambhavi. Hope you all are doing well. So basically, now today we are going to see one another topic in the statistics, and that is basically the distribution needed for the hypothesis testing. Right? Today we are going to deal with this particular topic which we have here in this hypothesis testing. Right, but before that, previously we had seen one example for calculating out your type 1 and type 2 errors, right? We had already seen that thing. Now, basically, today as well, let's see one another example, and in that, basically, I would be even one more time. I would be telling you that how you just can find out the type 1 and type 2 errors, and after that, we'll be moving towards the distribution needed for hypothesis testing. Right, so this is the whole idea of today's topics that we are gonna cover. So let me just go above once here, like right, and let me show you the question that we have discussed today. So, sorry, yesterday in the previous video, basically. So that was suppose the null hypothesis H naught is Frank's rock climbing equipment is safe, right? So in that we are taking the type 1 and the type 2 errors, right? We are taking this thing and the probabilities as well. That was alpha and beta, and after that at last we just wrote out a conclusion type of thing. Okay, this was the things that we had actually taken, right? Now, basically, I'll be just taking one color here and let's start writing that. Basically, let's see another question, fine? So, okay. So, here goes my, just let me once take that color 1 second. I'm sorry for that. So, here goes my question number, oh, question number 2, right? My question number 2 now says to me that, suppose, okay, so I would just write that question as well. Okay, right here. So I would just write that even in clear handwriting so that you are able to understand. Right. Okay. So suppose the null hypothesis, and what is the basically denotion for the null hypothesis, and that is basically H naught, right? So suppose the null hypothesis H naught is, I would just put out the colon here and write the victim is the victim of an automobile accident DE empty, right? So suppose the null hypothesis H naught is the victim of an automobile accident is alive when he arrives at the emergency room of a hospital. Let's say this is the question which I am given here. That is, suppose the null hypothesis H naught is the victim of an automobile accident is alive when he arrives at the emergency room of a hospital. Right. This is my question that actually I am given here. Now, what next actually I just need to do here? So, the next thing that I need to do here is that I just need to write out the type 1 and the type 2 errors and give a conclusion from this thing, right? So, here I will just first of all start writing the type 1 error. Okay, type 1 error, put the brackets like this and just let me come down here first of all. Okay, now basically here starts my type 1 error, and that is basically the emergency. Okay, the emergency. Okay, the emergency crew thinks that the victim the emergency crew thinks that the victim is dead when when in fact when in fact the victim is alive. The victim when in fact the victim is alive, right? So my type 1 error says that the emergency crew thinks that the victim is dead when in fact the victim is alive. So this is my type 1 error which comes here, okay? Now if we just move towards the type 2 error. So here goes the type 2 error like this. Okay, now my type 2 error says to me the emergency crew, let me calm down, okay, so that I can just write the things properly. Let me close this as well. Okay, fine. So the emergency crew does not know does uh, okay, so the emergency crew does not know that okay, so the emergency crew does not know if the victim if the victim is alive when in fact the victim is dead, when in fact the victim is dead. I'll just write that dead here, right? So these are first of all, these are two types of errors that come here. Let me just to take this ruler here. Fine. So my question was that suppose a null hypothesis H0 is a victim of an automobile accident is alive, right? When he arrives at the emergency room of a hospital. So in that case, my type 1 error comes that the emergency crew thinks that the victim is dead when in fact the victim is actually alive. Okay, other than that, the second thing comes the type 2 error. So the emergency crew does not know if the victim is alive when in fact the victim is dead, right? So these are the two things that actually come here, type 1 error and the type 2 error. Now next to this, let me close this as well once again. Okay, now next to this basically comes that we just need to write out the alpha and the beta as well, right? We just write out the alpha. So alpha is basically my probability. Okay, so probability that the emergency crew probability of my type 1 error. Okay, probability of my type 1 error. So if I just want to write that, so I just copy out the whole type 1 error which we have written here, and that same would come only in the starting, the probability would be added. So probability that the emergency, I would just put on a dash like this. Okay, I'm just not going to write the whole thing. So the probability that the emergency crew thinks that the victim is dead when in fact it is really alive, right? This was the first type 1 error, so I would just write it here as alive. So that was my actually type 1 error. Now if I just want to talk about the beta, so in beta as well, that comes the probability. So here comes the probability that the emergency crew does not know if the victim is alive when in fact the victim is dead. This was my type 2 error, right? So here in the bracket as well, I could just write that type 1 error, and for beta as well, I could just write that type 2 error. Like this, I could just write. Okay. So alpha and beta are actually finished up here, right? And basically the final conclusion that we can just write out here is that the error let me yeah right here. So the error with the greater consequences, the error with the greater consequences, okay, so the error with the greater consequences is the type 1 error. That is basically that the emergency crew thinks that the victim is done, but the victim is alive, right? Okay, so this was my annotated question for the type 1 and the type 2 errors, right? So basically I hope that you have got a clear and fair idea that if it is going to get some questions related to basically type 1 and the type 2 errors, so how you are going to just solve them out, right? Now, a next thing that comes here is regarding my distribution needed for the hypothesis test. Okay, let me just come down here right here. So I would just put on the topic as well here only because that's not a too much of a big topic. Okay, so I would just write here distribution needed for hypothesis testing. Okay, so the distribution needed for hypothesis testing, right? Here my next topic for now basically in this topic you basically have some formulas only, where there is no such theory or right tip to understand too much into this topic, right? Let me just list out that things as well. So if you are testing a single population mean, if you are testing a single population mean, okay, So my condition is that if you are testing a single population means in that basically the distribution the the distribution for the test for the the distribution for the test is for means. Okay, the distribution for the test is for the means. Let me just come down here and let me write out the formula. So that is basically x bar is approximately equal to capital N, and in the bracket it is mu x. Okay, it is mu x, right? Mu x comma sigma x upon under root of n. This was a simple single population mean, right? Or we just used to write it as TDF. Like this also we had written sometimes, right? You remember. So this is the formula which actually comes here, that if you just want to, if you are testing a single population mean, the distribution for the test is for means, and x bar is approximately equal to n. In bracket it is mu x comma sigma x upon under root of n, or TDF. Right, so this is the whole idea regarding the distribution needed for the hypothesis testing. There are some more things, some more formulas as well to discuss, that we'll be seeing in the next video, right? So basically, I hope that you have got a clear and a fair idea, first of all, that how to solve out the questions for the type 1 and the type 2 errors. Other than that, basically, you have got an idea regarding the first formula which comes under the distribution needed for the hypothesis testing. So rest of the things we'll be seeing in the next video. So this is all for this video. Till then, thank you and take care.